Assalamu alaikum. In this part of the course targeted at parents or those of us who are in a position of perhaps encouraging people to memorize the Qur'an, or even if we want to start at a later age, the uncommon or the lesser known or the less often mentioned benefits of memorizing the Qur'an. Because I may well have a section in this course where we're talking about the virtues of memorizing the Qur'an from the traditional sources, the hadiths and the scholarly teachings as to the benefits, but most of us know them to an extent, or we've heard of them, right? I'm talking about something that we don't often hear about. One of the biggest things that memorizing the Qur'an can do for someone, especially a child, especially someone who's embarking on this journey at a younger age, is that it completely changes their identity. And this is really powerful, right? I don't think I might not even be able to do justice to the topic, but I'm going to try. And I know that sounds like it's like really serious, but I think it is, because what do I mean by identity? For young people are in that time, especially when they're in high school or whatever, or just before that, where they're trying to find themselves, where they fit in within their social circle or within who they are, right? And it's the critical time where if they adopt a negative identity, if they adopt the identity of someone who's always messing about or causing trouble, or someone who gets into fights, or someone who's a tough one, I'm talking from like a male perspective, then that can stay with them until many years, until some other major event comes and shakes them out of it, or until they're guided by Allah to a better way, right? What memorizing the Qur'an can do, and obviously there's always exceptions, I know people love to, we're naturally drawn to the exception, right? So people will be like, oh, I knew someone who memorized the Quran that ended up supplying drugs to Robert Mugabe. There's always exceptions. That's not the point. We look at the general rule, the general trend, right? If you had 100 people who had memorized the Quran compared to 100 people who had not, how confident are you that the ones that have memorized the Quran in the correct way, you can assume certain positive things about them, right? Are we going to deny that? If you're going to deny that, switch the video off, switch the course off, because then there's no benefit. But anyway, so getting back to the topic, identity is how we view ourselves. Now, if a young person or someone who's 14, 15, 16 adopts the identity, they memorize the Quran, and what that entails is identity change doesn't come overnight, right? It comes through doing something that changes how you think of yourself. So if you're studying 3 or 4 or 5 hours per day memorizing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and every day you're looking at the pages of the Quran, that's a blessing in itself, right? Because every day you're looking at the pages of the Quran, you're associating with people who are memorizing the Quran every day. It becomes your frame of reference to an extent, because a large part of your day is how much have you learned, or how many pages sabak did you have, this kind of good competitive energy, maybe. Oh, I read this para today, what's your manzil? Oh, I don't know my manzil. And it's this kind of community or camaraderie around something, like the most positive thing you can have it around, right? So over time, what happens is you begin to shift your identity as someone who's memorized the Quran, or someone who's memorizing the Quran, right? And maybe that's through just the blessings from Allah, but it's also an innate kind of belief system that one acquires, or it's like a thought structure that one has. And what I'm trying to get at in terms of the uncommon benefits of that is that then the person who adopts this, they're less likely to do certain things that we generally view as negative or bad or haram, compared to someone who hasn't got this identity. Obviously we all sin, everyone can sin and everyone can fall into sin, but generally. Why? Because identity is a powerful thing. Why is it that in the deen and even common culture so much is about company and who you hang around with, especially for kids? Watch who your friends are. I don't want you to hang around with this person. Parents are always on this kind of line of thinking, right? And why is that? Because it shapes your identity, who you think you are. With this, if someone who sees themselves as someone who's honored in a way, not in an arrogant sense, although it's a bit of a fine line sometimes, depends how you, if you value yourself as someone who's memorizing the Quran, they're less likely to engage in sins, or they're less likely to engage in behavior that they view as beneath that status, right? And for a young person, this is a big thing, because oftentimes it's like if you're in a school or if you're in an environment full of Muslims, then sometimes it's like if you tell the child, oh, you're Muslim, you don't do this, it's like everyone else is Muslim. Do you get me? So although it's sad that that in itself isn't enough of a kind of a deterrent in a way, this takes it to another level, because then their identity is, I'm a Hafiz, or I'm someone who's studying the Quran, or I'm doing Hifdh. So when it comes to doing certain things, oh, we're all going to this party, or we're all doing this, or we're all taking a smoke of this, it's like the natural inclination is more likely to be repulsed by that, because it's like, nah, I'm not about that. I don't do that. Why? And then even whether or not they say it externally, or that's dependent on their personality, at least internally their self-talk is going to be, no, I'm memorizing the Quran, like I'm a Hafiz, I don't do that. Why would I dishonor myself? Why would I dishonor the Quran? Do you get me? So it's I don't know if I'm explaining it in a way that makes it sound shallow, but it's not, because it's something, when I get the opportunity to speak to young people who are doing this, I tell them that it's something that can save you in a lot of instances, because we know, growing up in this kind of society or whatnot, there's many struggles, temptations, trials, and something that helps you stick to your identity is invaluable, because when it comes to certain things, whether that's going to clubbing whilst you're at university, whether that's any other kind of these kind of things, I don't need to list out all the common kind of vices, right? This can save you. This can save your child. So if you're a parent, or if you're in a position of influence, or you're thinking of doing it yourself, that's something to consider. And if you think others can benefit from that, I'd recommend that you forward the video to them as well. Jazakallah khairan, and I'll see you in the next part of the course, inshallah.